Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sort of move smartly into the AGM. There's a few admin instructions that'll be flashed up. Certainly over the past 3 years, ADRIA has used the Zoom technology to allow access to our AGM from all points of the province. Typically, we've linked some social gatherings, wine and cheese in both Edmonton and Calgary. We've linked those rooms and brought others in by Zoom. This is the first year that we've gone 100% or entirely online. So bear with us. I think the AGM will have some variety. It certainly won't be a talking head from me. There are many others that are going to be speaking. The AGM materials have been emailed to you, or they're available on the ADRIA website. Questions can be posed at any time via chat or Q&A, but I will remind everyone that there is an open forum at the end after the meeting is adjourned where you can ask all your informal questions and get answers from a board member or a staff member. For voting, just a reminder that only the full ADRIA members should be voting, but there will be little screen pop-ups. Typically, unless a contentious issue arises, the votes are pretty perfunctory in terms of their administrative in nature. They don't usually cause many details, but we would ask you just to use the pop-up and vote quickly. The proceedings will take anywhere from 60 to 75 minutes. We'll try to keep it moving smartly along, followed by that open forum that I mentioned. And I will now, without further ado, introduce once again our president, Barbara McNeil, to begin the AGM.
Thanks very much, Paul. Good evening, everybody. Before I get into our agenda, I'd first again like to thank Chief Justice Moreau. It was an honor for ADRIA to be your first online keynote presentation and to hear firsthand the innovations that the courts have put in place for Alberta. And yes, difficulties move us to opportunities, and here we are celebrating the innovations that we have here too in ADRIA. So thank you once again for being our speaker. We deeply appreciate it, and hearing your stories about ADR as well too. As we move along, what I'd like to ask for approval of the agenda, please. And I understand Sandra is collecting those. Those can be sent in via chat. So I'll just ask for a motion for approval of an agenda, and Sandra will keep track of that. The next thing I'll ask for is the approval of our AGM minutes from June 2019. And again, I ask for someone to put forward a motion to accept or to approve the AGM minutes. I believe that when a vote is necessary, those will be put out in the form of a poll to all members.
So Sandra, did you get the motion made? I believe Dora made the second motion.
Are we ready to?
I have JB making the first, moving to accept the agenda. And Dora moving to accept the minutes.
Yeah, I can second the first motion.
Okay, and we have Tom Smith.
Thank you, members. It's good to know you're there and close to your computer.
Okay, we do need to go back. We just, we need to approve the accepting of the minutes and the agenda. So just a moment.
I'm unable to actually vote on that.
Panelists are not able to vote, Barbara.
Oh, okay, I see. Thank you.
Just a technical glitch.
Oh, I see it. All right.
And while she's collecting those votes, Barbara, shall we ask Barry to introduce our speaker from ADR Canada?
Yes, we should. Barry, will you please introduce our speaker from ADR Canada, please?
Happy to do so, Barbara and Paul. Andy Bott is a native son of Canada's most eastern province, Newfoundland and Labrador. I'll be brief because the 3.5-hour time difference probably has Andy starting to think about bedtime. So we'll get him on and off as soon as possible. But thank you, Andy, for making yourself available to speak to us tonight. Andy holds both his CARB and CMed designations and is a graduate of Memorial University in St. John's. His mediation and arbitration practice has over the years covered a very broad spectrum of disputes, including employment, labor and collective bargaining, workplace investigations and assessments, construction. He also provides extensive training in conflict management, anti-harassment, mediation, and respectful workplace training. He is the 2016 recipient of the McGowan Award for Leadership and Contribution to ADR at the regional level. And while I've only been a member of the ADRIC board for about a year, I have thoroughly enjoyed working with Andy on a number of matters and have learned to appreciate his very steady hand on the tiller of ADRIC since he became its president in 2018. So without anything more, I give it over to Andy Bott.
Thanks very much, Barry. It's really a pleasure to be here with you and with the board. And thank you, Barbara, and the board of ADRIA for the invitation, and particularly for your the way that you're working through this pandemic situation. We know that you have been hit dramatically because of the very prominent and prolific training program that you have that unfortunately now ends up taking the biggest hit for you. But we have heard how you're adjusting, and as Justice Moreau was talking about, when we have a crisis, we start to look at ways that we can do things differently and still survive. And I think that is what ADRIA is doing and what ADRIC is doing as well across Canada. Also like to thank Paul and staff for all the efforts that you make on behalf of ADR in Alberta, and the way that you contribute nationally. I'd also, while I'm here, just mention Sandra Drake's efforts and ADRIA's efforts for allowing her to be able to help us with the President's Roundtable, which is a unique opportunity for presidents of affiliates and ADR boards across Canada to be able to share and to be able to help each other as we try to have a pan-Canada ADR network. And while I've got a lot of members online, nationally and also provincially, we all depend upon volunteers to make things work for us. So all of us on the panel, on the boards and so on, are volunteers, and we give extra of our time to be able to keep things moving. A lot of the important work is done by volunteers, and a lot of Alberta members make significant contributions to the work at National. There's a lot of effort from your staff and from leaders in the designations area. We have Barry's unique efforts at dealing with the adjudication piece that we're going to hear about later on in this agenda. Wendy Hassan has been a gem at being able to help us nationally and then working tirelessly on behalf of Alberta. So volunteers, we appreciate your work, and we certainly would like to recognize your contribution to ADR in Canada. Next slide, Sandra. When the pandemic hit us all, our ADRIC board decided that we would just like to try to figure out how could we actually support members. So first people we thought about were the members. And I think that as I'm seeing across the country, that's what the ADR affiliates have been doing as well. Our members told us through a survey that it was really, really important to stay connected with other people who are in the same boat, to hear what they're doing, to hear how they're helping each other, how they're surviving through the pandemic and the high restrictions. So we did a survey, and we then started to react to what people wanted. And just like Alberta and other affiliates, we started providing things that allowed people to come to meetings without being physically there, such as we're doing tonight. And where we could, those efforts were being led by volunteers who were providing their services free and made the webinars and the self-help things available to members for free as well. And I think the 17th of this month, there's another free webinar that's coming on mental health. And as a result of our situation, next slide, Sandra, we've started to, not only when we do the webinars, but to make them last by recording them. And if you've missed it, you can actually go to the ADRIC website and see if the webinar that you've been interested in has been recorded, and you can see it at your own schedule. We've been trying to support individuals who are learning how to use these services like Zoom services to be able to carry out their practices online, and they've been really, really helpful. And we've also been collecting resources when people create something that may be of interest to others about how to practice, what some of your standards might be, what others are doing to handle, let's say, how do you get a signature while you're online? There are resources like that that are captured on our website, and you access the ADRIC website by using your member portal. Next one, Sandra. Speaking of the member portal, that's the place where all of your membership information is being kept as a member of ADR Institute of Canada, as well as a member of ADR Institute of Alberta. We try to make things current and try to keep you advised of what's going on in the rest of Canada. We also will post there things that come off the Merck's website and other places where we find advertisements for mediators, for arbitrators, for harassment investigators. And you might find opportunities when you check our website. And we have also created an ODR task force, an online dispute resolution task force that's collecting and making resources free to members on our website. So make sure that you know how to access the portal and be able to see what is available to you as a member there. Next slide, Sandra. One of the unique opportunities that's happened now, and you'll hear about some of this from Barry, is that across the country, legislation is being created to try to really unjam the problems that happen in construction, and have created things like prompt payment legislation, which keeps construction projects going while disputes are being resolved. Right now in Ontario, they've gone ahead and created their construction adjudication appointing authority, and they have a company which is handling that in Ontario. We think that every province is essentially going to go through this, and we know that Alberta is gearing up for that to happen throughout your province. Nationally, we are taking a really close look at the what's going to happen with the federal construction projects and federal adjudication. And actually that particular committee work is led by Barry, and so he's in a unique position to be able to give you some more information later in this session. Next slide, Sandra. Just like you, ADRIC has been looking at how it's going to do things differently without being able to get people in the same room. So our national conference is planned to be a series of webinars. So beginning in July, we'll start with webinars on topics that are of interest to ADR practitioners. And we hope that actually by doing it this way, a lot more of you and a lot more of the members across Canada will be able to participate and select topics which are of interest to you and really pay very little fee in order to be able to take top-notch exposure to people who are thinking about ADR and how it applies in a varied set of topics. We think it'll reach more people and it'll be more cost effective for everybody. So look for that to be announced, and we hope that you'll participate in the things that interest you. Next slide, Sandra. One of our key achievements this year was that we have completed a set of mediation arbitration rules. It's becoming popular now in a number of areas to try to resolve through mediation, and then any outstanding problems could be resolved through arbitration right afterwards. It's got some unique challenges. And you know, the rules under which we operate mediation are different than the rules under arbitration, and how do you actually move towards it? So part of our situation was that we created the rules. They were done by volunteers in the field, and they've challenged or been able to resolve some of the challenges of moving from mediation to arbitration, and without messing up either one of the processes. We've also created a designation to go along with it. So a person who is trained in mediation arbitration, the combination of the two, can actually achieve a designation called a chartered mediator or arbitrator. And we're also creating a training program that'll go along with that. And on top of that, in the designations, next slide, Sandra. We're also looking at the possibility of adding designation that recognizes the unique services of mediators and even arbitration practices in family. We hope that'll be available soon. Next slide, Sandra. We also know that trainers benefit from having courses pre-approved for designations. So we've got a national program that now allows a course to be submitted, and it can receive a seal of approval from ADRIC, and it actually says, look, your hours will be counted towards this designation. Next slide. We have two major publications, ADR Perspectives and our journal. And both of those are seeking to keep people current on what's happening in mediation and arbitration and ADR around the country and sometimes around the world. If you want to contribute, look them up on our website, and just come forward to the ADRIC office using one of the links, and express your interest, and hopefully we'll be able to count on you to contribute to our website. Next slide. Just a quick look at the fact that we also have ADRIC having sponsors to help us meet our financial obligations and to do more for members. And these are just some of our sponsors. And last slide. Thank you very much for allowing us 10 minutes or so to be able to just have a presence with you and to see what's going on in Alberta. Commend you for the top-notch speaker that you had for today. I learned a lot from Justice Moreau just about what's going on in Alberta. And again, thank you for having me this evening. Back to you, Barbara.
Andy, thank you so much for taking the time and going through speedily and thoroughly all the initiatives that ADRIC carries forward on behalf of members, of which we all are as well too. So yeah, very, very nice that you were able to join us. We appreciate it so much. Thank you. I'd like to move into the reports that we have for this evening, and I will give my president's report. ADRIA's annual general meeting is our opportunity to report on the year past, give a glimpse into the year ahead, and to give thanks, which is where I'll start. And so first, our volunteers, that you're all out there, I hope. Thank you to many of the ADRIA members who volunteer to support this organization. You provide your time and talent on committees. You show up and pitch in at ADRIA events, and when asked to provide your specialized expertise, you're there for us. Thank you all for being part of the ADRIA community, and your contributions are deeply appreciated. ADRIA staff always keep the machinery of our organization moving and advancing, and never more so than this year. Since early March, you have responded and adapted ADRIA to the COVID crisis demands with speed, innovation, and commitment. Our Executive Director, Paul Conway, immediately addressed ADRIA's needs due to COVID. He researched and acted promptly on available cost-saving programs, and he kept the board up to date and informed. And Paul, you always kept your sense of humor intact through all of that. Another one is that you had us using Zoom for many board meetings over the last 2 years. So I, for one, felt at least slightly ahead of the game as everything moved online. Sincerely to all ADRIA staff, can we thank you enough? I'll try. So on behalf of the board and members, please accept our deep gratitude. You keep our organization thriving. Thank you. Thank you to my fellow board members. I'm going to be introducing you later, but you're such a committed, perceptive, smart, lovely, and fun bunch of people to work with. It's a privilege. So members, your board met in December to focus on strategic planning. The overall thinking that guided our discussions was to provide and create value for members. We endorsed a new vision statement, leading dispute resolution in Alberta. Sounds pretty familiar to the one from ADRIC, which is leading dispute resolution in Canada. But that statement indicates ADRIA's intention to work with partners and members to promote the effective use of ADR in this province, because as you know, the opportunities for using the spectrum of ADR practice are significant. We established 5 strategic initiatives, and these are: 1, to create the strategic business plan to have ADRIA ready to be a self-regulating professional organization should the need arise. Self-regulating member bodies have all these 3 key elements in place to safeguard the public users of a profession: identified competency standards, the ability to approve and regulate practitioners, and a complaint and discipline policy. The goal is that ADRIA will have those key pieces in place so that we can emulate a self-regulating body. The other strategic initiatives are to focus on and develop the key relationships that advance the interest of ADRIA members, to develop and administer dispute resolution rosters that would access the services of ADRIA's members, to define competencies for dispute resolution practitioners, and develop revenue streams in addition to training. So our focus this fall is the development of an operational plan to advance these initiatives. The board looks forward to the year ahead, and we always welcome the involvement of members, and we ask that you stay tuned and stay in touch. Now, earlier we were saying that normally at these meetings we will be serving wine. So I don't know what you may have out there in your glass, but I'll let you guess what's in mine. But I'd just like to acknowledge all the hard work of everybody and give this toast to ADRIA. So to ADRIA, everybody. Thanks. And then I'll move on to Dora Dang, our treasurer.
Thank you, Barbara. My fellow colleagues, I am pleased to present the 2019 and year-end update on behalf of the Board of Directors. ADR Institute of Alberta's income cover all expenses. Overall revenue exceeds expenses by $41,749. Our executive director and staff is making every effort to mitigate and reduce expenditure and is seeking new opportunities at the same time. So due to personal reason, David Chung rescinded as the auditor for the 2019. And David Chung also connected ADR Alberta with Ho LLP. As our auditor, Ho LLP noted that ADR Institute of Alberta's financial position is in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organization. A copy of the audit statements and details are available for your reference, and it's also on the screen there, which we highlighted some of those key figures there. I move a motion to accept, I'm the treasurer. Can I move the motion to accept the treasurer's report? Or would somebody else move the, okay, all right. I move a motion to accept the treasury report and the 2019 audit financial as presented. Who would like to second this motion?
Somebody could do that through the chat function. We'd appreciate it.
Sandra, let us know. Oh, I have Ali. Ali seconded, or Michelle Benici. Okay, so I'll let Sandra take care of that. And any, I guess, any dissent or discussion right now?
People can vote now. The pop-up is on their screen.
Okay, there we go. Pop-up's on the screen now. Please.
And while that's taking place, you can move on to the second point there.
Yeah, I also move to make a motion to appoint Ho LLP as the auditor for 2020. And who, can I have, like, who would like to second this motion?
We'll see how fast people can type.
Yeah, and Barry? Barry's going to second that. or
Actually, let's go with Steph and Cecile. It's always
Yeah.
good to have the members do the motions.
sounds good, Paul. So we completed the audit. We couldn't completed the audit without the dedicated staff at ADR Institute there with Paul and Karen and his many dedicated part-time staffer. So thank you for this opportunity to share the financials update from the Board of Directors. Please keep well, and we look forward to connecting with you online in the next event. Back to you, Barbara.
Okay, thanks so much, Dora. We appreciate your attention to detail. And I have to say, I particularly like the look of those gold coins that were stacked underneath your picture on that first slide. So let's keep them coming. Barry Marshall. Barry, I'll be introducing you later in terms of as a member of the board. I'll just hand it over to you right now as our ADRIC representative to give your report. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. The only matter that I will be reporting on is the prompt payment adjudication initiative in which ADRIC is a major participant, as are the other affiliates across the province, not the least of which, of course, being the province of Alberta, and I'll be referencing that in a moment. As many of you already know, and as Andy alluded to in his remarks, most of the other provinces in Canada and the federal government are in various stages of implementing prompt payment and adjudication legislation for the construction industry. Ontario's legislation is already operational and adjudications are taking place as we speak. The prompt payment piece is of much greater interest to people in the construction industry than it is to our membership, but it provides for an expedited payment process. I won't go into any of the details, but coupled with that, in order to resolve disputes in a more timely fashion during the course of a construction project, we have the concept of adjudication. And adjudication, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the process, it's an expedited, rough and ready form of arbitration, which has been in use in the United Kingdom for approximately 25 years and used very, very effectively there in terms of, again, speeding up the payment process and in resolving many disputes before they find their way into more formal arbitrations or before the courts in that jurisdiction. Since that time, other jurisdictions like Australia and New Zealand have rolled out programs. There's a program like this in Ireland. And again, they've had very, very excellent results. And certainly, this was something that when it came to our attention, we realized at the ADRIC level and at the affiliate level that this was an initiative that we could not afford to be on the outside looking in on. Adjudicators are in those jurisdictions which have those regimes in place, are typically drawn from the construction industry, and you have to, in order to become an adjudicator, you have to demonstrate you've got certain expertise in construction. But whether or not you're a construction manager, somebody who's worked in accounting, somebody who's been practicing law, you just have to demonstrate you've got a familiarity with the construction industry. And then you're obliged to take training, and once you become qualified as an adjudicator, you can handle these adjudications. And the adjudications themselves are very, as I indicated before, very rough and ready, but very quick, expedited resolutions of disputes during the course of the project. At the end of the project, the parties who may well have handled 7 or 8 adjudications during the course of the project may well then choose to take the matter to a more formal arbitration or litigation, because the adjudications are only temporarily binding, which is an interesting thing. But the experience has been in those jurisdictions that have adjudication in place that most of these disputes tend to go away. As mentioned before, ADRIC and its affiliates are trying to obtain a role for ourselves, possibly as the adjudication authority, which would be administering body and the body which handles the appointments of adjudicators, both at the federal level and to participate in the process at the affiliate or provincial level. In that regard, we are in a loose partnership with 3 other organizations: the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors out of the UK, the Canadian Institute of Quantity Surveyors here in Canada, and the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. And we've been consulting to the provincial and federal governments respecting the possible design and implementation of adjudications training for adjudicators, and again, for the objective of playing some sort of a role in becoming an adjudication authority provincially and at the federal level. More locally in Alberta, some of you may have heard that Alberta is very aggressively now pursuing a consultative process to obtain input from stakeholders throughout the province. And ADRIA has participated in a stakeholder engagement meeting in Edmonton in January. We've submitted a report with recommendations ahead of that meeting. We've completed an online survey, and Paul Conway and I will be attending 3 more stakeholder sessions later this month. We invite any ADRIA board members who have an interest in this area. Feel free to give either Paul or me a call to see what role you might be able to play in assisting us on this. We're quite confident that that prompt payment and adjudication legislation is going to be quite transformative for the construction industry in this province, and we're very excited both at the provincial ADRIA and national ADRIC level to be possibly participating in that initiative.
Barry, we have a quick question and we have time to take it. So Wendy Hassan is asking if you might provide a quick example of the type of construction dispute that might go to adjudication. And of course, adjudication has been described by some as kind of a rough and ready, a quick fix, if you will, that allows a project to move on. So an example would be very helpful.
Yeah, well, it of course depends on the model that gets adopted at the provincial level, but there are really no constraints. As I understand it, in Ontario, the Ontario Adjudication Authority there and the adjudicators are hearing disputes involving delay claims, progress payments, extras claims, the sort of disputes that you frequently see arise during the course of a construction project. And they're getting these resolved in a very, very timely fashion so that at the end of the project isn't slowed down. It continues to flow, money continues to flow. And again, the parties, because it's such an expedited process, the legislation contemplates that you might get another kick at the cat if you're not satisfied with the very quick and again rough and ready type of process that it is. But the parties, by and large, are very, very happy with how it's been working. And typically, most cases do not find their way before a formal arbitration afterwards or a court.
Well, thank you, Barry. And on that note, we will thank you again, and we appreciate the representation that you provide to all of our Alberta members at the national level. And of course, for those that aren't aware, that's a 3-year term, and Barry actually has to sit on both boards. So he's a busy man, even though he's retired. We're keeping him very busy. I will turn it over. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. You're going to turn it over to me. I'll take it over. I was going to say Barry gets to sit on both boards. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for your
privilege.
Thanks so much, Barry. Appreciate and thank you for your report. Next is our education report from Tammy Borowicki.
Hey everyone. Thank you for having me speak today. So 2019 for education for ADRIA was an absolutely outstanding year. We ran more courses, we had more students, and we had an incredible amount of private contracts, and it was just excelling. And then we hit this year and everybody knows what happened. So we went from really, really great enrollment, students, everything, to absolutely shutting down. So we have had to adopt and pivot and shift. And what we've done is gone a little bit quicker into online training than we expected to get into. And so the challenge for us has been to duplicate what is so successful for us for our in-person classes. So that personal touch, the points where you're able to practice together, all of those things are a little bit more challenging online, but I think we've found ways to make that successful for our students. So for some of the courses that we had had posted, we were able to transition to more of a virtual class, so that's the same format, but in an online platform. And others have had to be redeveloped, so it's more of a synchronous and asynchronous training. So it hasn't been just a one-size-fits-all, and we've done a little bit of everything. So we did run our National Introductory Arbitration course online at the end of April, and we did actually get more students enrolled in that class. A lot of people said they wouldn't have been able to take that class had we not offered it online due to scheduling and such. We had to run the part 2 of the National Introductory Mediation course online, as those students were prevented from continuing in the classroom. We redesigned our high conflict mediation course for online learning, and this is a asynchronous and synchronous combination course, and we have 2 options for that course, which is a 14-hour or a 28-hour program, and that starts June 23rd. We've created an online option for the communications and ADR course, and so that again is a synchronous asynchronous learning. And next on my list is to work on the National Introductory Mediation course from the beginning and offer that as an online course and a mediation case development, and then look forward for additional courses. So as we deliver these courses online, it's actually a lot more work to deliver them online than it is in the classroom. So I wanted to specifically thank Sandra for her tireless efforts. Organizing a lot of the logistics in regards to an online class are absolutely mind-boggling on what we have to do. And thank you so much, Sandra, for all your work in that. We are keeping all of our currently scheduled fall classes that are in-person classes. We are keeping those open for registration. We do have plans to move forward in a safe manner to allow participants to be 2 meters apart, to ensure that we offer a safe office space. So those will continue to be open for registration for our courses. I haven't yet, at this time I would have already posted our 2021 courses, and I'm just a little bit slow in doing that as we're trying to look forward and seeing what the fall is going to be like for us. So that'll be a couple extra months. And so we're essentially taking a wait and see approach to see how confident people are in attending classes in person. And at the same time, we're developing as much as we can in online content, with the goal being that this is our new model moving forward. We are going to continue to offer in-person classes and continue to offer online classes as we move forward for ADRIA. And I also wanted to provide a little bit of an update on staffing. So this past summer, as we were expanding within our area, Jocelyn moved to a new role, which is an education special projects, so focusing on course development, which has been absolutely awesome. Natasha Mohammed came on board. She was hired in August as an education coordinator, but has gone on a maternity leave. And Sandra, which was on our membership desk, has taken over for education for a year. So a little bit of a shift around. And also in terms of our contractors, Gary Selby, a longtime arbitration instructor for ADRIA and back when Ames was around, he has decided to retire from instructing. So I'd really like to thank Gary for his tireless work in the arbitration field, or working on our arbitration courses. He definitely put in a lot of effort into making the success in our program. So thanks, Gary, and good luck in the semi-retirement, at least retiring from teaching. And moving forward, we're also looking to host more online opportunities for learning and professional development. So if you have a webinar idea, a workshop, something that you've created that you want to offer through ADRIA, we are open to those ideas online. If you have an events training program that you would like to offer, we're also looking for those to partner with other organizations. So please contact me if you have any of those ideas or opportunities. All of our courses and programs are on our website. We now created an online learning tab so people can, if they're only interested in taking online courses, they can see what online opportunities and workshops are online, so you can check that out. And Christy, our marketing person, is working on redeveloping or reorganizing our website. We have had, we've grown so much in terms of our content and our website, it's requiring a little bit of a rethink and a redo. And so our education pages will be looking better soon as we reorganize that. So feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions or if you have any ideas for a program. I'm really looking forward to hearing from everybody or anybody in letting me know what they think we can do to improve the program, how they can support us, what you would like to see, or just any questions in general. So thank you very much for, I think I'm under my 5 minutes, Paul. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Tammy, thank you so much for that report. You know, you said that 2019 was an outstanding year. I think what you and your education team have done in the last 3 months is outstanding. So really appreciate that. I had a chance to participate in a course, an ADRIA course last week, and was really impressed with how the whole online forum was managed. So kudos to you and your team for the work that you've done in such a short period of time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Barbara.
Paul, Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Tammy, as well. You know, I've been with ADRIA now since 2013. I've been the Executive Director since 2014, and it continues to be a privilege to work with this organization. I do encourage everyone to read the annual report, which is now available online. Obviously, we couldn't reach you and give you hard copies, but it is online, and it's got a lot of great information in it. I encourage you to take a look at that regarding the year past and our current challenges. I'll move on to our membership update, and the numbers that you see in front of you are 2019 numbers. And you know, I won't mince words. We've seen a few members that have had to fall off for a variety of reasons: economic, financial, you know, employment issues. We've lost a few members, and we do expect to see a small decline in both designations and membership. But overall, membership remains strong, and I'm very pleased with the stability of our full and associate members and our associates. COVID and the continuing impact of the pandemic and depressed oil prices will continue to impact our membership, and we're, you know, as much as possible, we're trying to you know, provide breaks or free memberships, as was mentioned earlier, to the co-parenters, and even, you know, more time to pay membership dues and designations. So I thank you to all the members for sticking in there. Next slide. We've had 2019 was another good year for designations. Again, over 30 new or upgraded designations. We did move to 3 application periods per year to make it easier. Nobody should have to wait more than 3 or 4 months to put in a designation application. So we now accept designation applications and upgrades in February, in June, and in October. So we're in the middle of an application month right now. And I encourage people to, you know, get their paperwork together if it's time to apply or upgrade, or start planning for October so that you have your work in place and your training in place. Next slide, please. We're also, we've also worked hard to provide more incentives for chartered mediators, and we want to make sure that there is you know, a healthy distinction between chartered and qualified. Everyone's a professional, and we want to encourage the qualified mediators to progress to chartered status. It takes time, it takes effort, but it's worth the effort, and we want to make sure that we recognize that. I sit on the National Insurance Committee, so we've, you know, I put forward a proposal, and it's been approved that there will be a 20% fee reduction for insurance for those with chartered designations. That's up from 15% last year. And there is still a smaller fee discount for those with qualified designations as well. For 2020, we introduced a fee holiday for those that are pursuing a chartered designation in any way, shape, or form. So the ADRIA application fee of $200 has been waived for anyone who is looking for a chartered designation. And And of course, we also changed the structure of our online directory of ADR professionals, so that those with chartered designations pay 1/3 less than the full fee. So those are the things that we've put in place. And as Andy mentioned, there will, probably before the year is out, there will be some details out there on how you can get your MedArb designation. There will be changes coming to the CEE structure for mediation and soon for arbitration as well. So keep an eye on that. Some people might see that as a fee increase, because instead of paying the full fee for a CEE reevaluation every 3 years, they're just going to help you spread it out over a 3-year period. And ADRIC will also give you the opportunity to submit your CEE points on an annual basis, so that you're not stuck looking back over the past 3 years trying to figure out how many engagement and education activities you took. So you took in that 3-year period. So keep an eye out for that. Next slide, please. It's already been mentioned by Barbara and by Tammy, our reliance on volunteers, instructors, and coaches. We couldn't do the job that we do. We couldn't generate the revenue to sustain this organization and do the advocacy work without the tireless efforts of instructors, coaches, and volunteers. So my thanks to all of you. We have the designation committees. We have the new luncheon and webinar committee. We have members who have volunteered to help our partner organizations like the Condo Forum and other nonprofits that work to provide non-adversarial dispute resolution processes in the province. And of course, there are many ADRIC and federation committees where you can contribute at the national level in designation and professional practice standards. So please keep an eye out for those opportunities when they arise. We really do appreciate the many volunteers that keep this organization and the national organization functioning and improving the standards and protecting the public. Next slide. Again, Barbara has mentioned this, and Tammy has certainly spoken to the education team. This is an exceptional group of people. This is our staff as of 2019. We actually, 2019 was a very good year for us, and we actually added a few team members so that we could expedite some activities, some initiatives, and better serve the membership. And if we just slip to the next slide, there's been a small reduction since then due to the COVID, and we've furloughed and we've realigned staff so that we can continue to provide all the essential services and focus on the membership, which needs to remain our focus as a staff. But these are exceptionally dedicated people, and I hope you've gotten to know many of them. Next slide, please. Of course, as Tammy and others have mentioned, COVID-19 has certainly changed. I went off to Florida in early March, and I came back to a very different world. Not only did I have to stay home for 14 days, but we had to take a good look at our finances and our structure and what kind of activities we could support and what was no longer supportable. So we have a 4-point COVID response. Our first priority, of course, was the safety of our staff and our membership, and that meant canceling classes or in-person classes. It meant working from home, and it meant some restructuring of our staff resources. Our second priority, of course, was, or maybe it's our prime priority, was to enhance the value of ADRIA membership. We've tried to put on more free activities, more free luncheons. In fact, we moved our luncheons online, and instead of getting 30 people and the networking opportunity that always provided, now we're getting 100. We've had over 100 for the last 2 luncheons, and in fact, we have over 200 registered now for the June 18th luncheon with Rye Moran from the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation. Our third point, of course, was financial stability, and this is where some tough decisions had to be made with respect to staff and expenditures. We've certainly accessed on your behalf every single government support that we can, and we've tried to use the resources strategically, which kind of takes us to the fourth point of our COVID response, and that is strategically investing in what could be a long-term issue without government supports as we progress into the fall and through the winter. So providing online training, it's something we've been working at slowly for many years. We've certainly had to expedite that effort, and I think it will set us up very well for 2021 and beyond. So You know, if that involves reimagining ADRIA for 2021 and beyond, then the board and the staff will do that as well. Yeah, it's an important part of the work that we do on your behalf. Next slide, please. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not thank the board of directors. They provide you, the membership, with exceptional strategic guidance to us, the staff, and they work without any real compensation, and they work tirelessly on your behalf. It's a high-functioning, self-motivated board, well led by its leadership, and we've got some really exciting new talent coming on the board this year. On that note, I think I'll turn it back to Barbara to carry on with the rest of the AGM, and please, you know, we'll entertain any questions that you might have about ADRIA operations at the open forum at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Barbara.
Paul, thanks so much for your report. I want to take this opportunity to present the Board of Directors, the 2020 to 2021 Board of Directors. And the first group that I'm going to introduce you to is the talented executive team I got to work with last year, and who will continue in their roles for the next year. Michelle Benici is our Vice President. Michelle's senior role in an organization that runs care facilities as one of their functions has had much asked of her of late, and yet she's always been available for our board meetings. Michelle's an HR specialist, and she brings very caring wisdom to the VP role. Secretary Ali Ansel. Ali is an ADR specialist with the Alberta Energy Regulator and does private practice mediation. She's an amazing record keeper and task minder, and fast. The minutes are usually out to the board before we can close out our computers, and with our to-do lists attached. Treasurer Dora Dang is taking on the treasurer role for the 3rd year now, and with her double credentials in accounting and ADR, she's a steady hand on ADRIA finances. Dora has a private practice called Leap Divorce Solutions. Next slide. Our ADRIC representative is Barry Marshall. We take shameless advantage of Barry, having retired from last year from his law practice. He's our go-to guy on many things, certainly related to prompt payment. The most recent one is he quickly took on the informal role of Chief Elections Officer as we introduced a trial process to determine an approved process for selection of officers for the executive. Our governance chair, Kevin Kelly, gives us considered and able thinking to keep us current and appropriate on governance matters. A lawyer, it's the same considered thinking he provides his arbitration and mediation clients. Next slide, please. Michelle Simpson is leaving the board this year after many years, and you'll hear more about Michelle from Barry shortly. Michelle's a lawyer, an arbitrator, investigator, and has been a valuable asset to our board. We have Doug Devlin has retired after a year and a half on our board. Doug was a CN specialist in Aboriginal relations and negotiations. Our returning board members are Min Punja. Amin is a biologist and owner of a pest control company, and he brings to our board his valuable experience as chairman of the Aga Khan Conciliation and Arbitration Board for Edmonton. In his 2nd term, Paul Blakeney has vast experience in almost every form of ADR, and he applies that specialized role with Alberta Energy. And I am very delighted to show you on the next slide, introduce our 2 new board members. Do we have pictures of Sharon and Sam? There we go. Sharon Roberts is a lawyer and also a certified psychological health and safety advisor, and Sharon joins us with significant board experience. Sam Saleh is a socioeconomic and ADR specialist with the Canada Energy Regulator, and he travels the country dealing with disputes related to energy and pipeline development issues. Sharon and Sam, official thank you and welcome to the board. We so look forward to working with you. And I think that is the, now new business, if there being any new business to bring forward. I don't think we had any formally added to the agenda, did we? Then I am going to pass this agenda at this moment over to Barry, and Barry has some acknowledgements and recognition to provide.
Thanks again, Barbara. Yes, I have been granted the privilege of thanking our departing board members, who we are very sorry to be losing in both cases. First of all, Doug Devlin, who, as Barbara advised, joined our board only a year and a half ago, but has had to step down about halfway through his first term due to personal reasons. Doug is a very, very busy individual, and we appreciate the time he took away from that very busy schedule to assist us during the period of time he was on our board. He punched well above his weight in that brief period of time for our board. As Barbara mentioned, he's the Senior Manager of Aboriginal and Tribal Relations for CN Rail. Throughout his career, Doug has applied principles of ADR extensively in areas of reconciliation, economic development, social license, ancestral and archaeological, environmental and traditional land use, and modern and historical agreements. Doug's insight and experience in ADR matters generally, and in First Nations matters more specifically, proved to be a major asset to our board, and his premature loss to our board will be sorely felt. Thank you, Doug, for your contribution over the past year and a half. We hope you'll stay in touch, and we may have work for you yet in the future, Doug. So you may not have escaped our clutches entirely. We do have a gift for Doug, as we do for all departing board members. Don't know what that is. I haven't been consulted in that regard, but I'm sure it'll be something very appropriate. Michelle Simpson. Michelle, I don't know where to start in thanking you. Again, it really is a privilege to be able to thank you. For many years, Michelle has been a passionate supporter and advocate and service provider of ADR in Alberta and throughout the country. And there has been no better illustration of that passion than in the many hundreds of hours that she has given so generously of her time to the strategies, mission, and vision of ADRIA during her 6-year tenure on our board. During that period of time, she has served in many capacities, most recently as president and a member of our designations and training task force. She is, with her depth of legal knowledge and ADR knowledge and familiarity with ADRIA's bylaws and policies, Michelle became our technician, our moral compass, and quite frankly, our rock on the board. You quickly learned that while you may not always agree with Michelle's views on a matter, if you were going to debate her on a point, you had best bring your A game, because Michelle only has an A game. Thank you, Michelle, again for your service to the board and your many contributions to ADR in the province of Alberta and the country as a whole. You will be missed. And again, we have a gift for you, which I believe Paul and the staff are taking care of.
Thank you very much, Barry. And I'm just checking in with Paul. I believe that takes us to the end of our agenda. And then I will note that this AGM is about to adjourn, but not before I thank everybody for the work that they did in coordinating it, managing the online aspect of it, and of course for everybody who joined us and participated. We thank you so much. Okay, I declare the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Barbara. And as I promised at the beginning of the meeting, we will stay online for just as long as people have questions. Now, we've been struggling to monitor the hands up and the Q&A box and the chat box. So we'll do our best to answer questions. But I would ask that maybe all future questions, if it would come in the chat function, that'll just make it a little bit easier for us to monitor. Tammy, there's a question here from you, for you. Tammy, now that the courses will be available to people across the country, will we be coordinating with other affiliates so as not to poach students or to maximize opportunities? This is a great question and it's come up, but I'll let you provide an answer.
Oh, thanks for that. So right now, there are very few affiliates across the country that are actually offering training programs. So ADRBC is offering some training programs with mediation. And Atlantic, I believe, is offering with the arbitration, and then a little bit in the prairies for some mediation courses. So there hasn't been a lot of other offerings. We are the only affiliate that has a robust training program. And so a lot of the courses that we do offer, like communications and ADR, the high conflict mediation, our case development, none of that exists through other affiliates. So there really is no competition if they do join from us. There might be from some post-secondary institutes and such that have, or other private training institutes, but not from the other affiliates. I am working with ADRBC, and I have been communicating with them over the last couple of months as we've been discussing about putting the mediation course. They are putting their mediation, the National Introductory Mediation course online, as are we. And so we've been talking about how we can share resources, how we can ensure that students get the best fit. So we're really working together on that. I am not aware of any other affiliate offering any other online training in the national arbitration or mediation across the country. I do believe we are the only one for both courses, and other than BC for the mediation.
It is very ADRIA is quite unique. Why have I suddenly got an echo? ADRIA is quite unique in terms of the educational program that we provide. In fact, not every affiliate across the country actually has a staff working on its behalf. Some smaller affiliates work just as with the board and out of their basement, so to speak. But we're very gifted here, and of course the resources that we earn from our education program are poured into advocacy efforts with the government and other entities, which actually brings me to a question here. Has ADRIA communicated its position about the family court unification to the government? And the answer is quite simple, and you've probably heard my overture to the Chief Justice. We wanted to be sure that we were reflecting the court's preferences, and we'll be meeting with Justice Youngworth and others in the days ahead to talk about how can ADRIA assist in advocating for the Unified Family Court. As the Chief Justice mentioned, we are possibly the only province now that has not brought together the provincial and Queen's Bench judicial resources into a Unified Family Court. So we look forward to that opportunity, and I think we have a willing partner in the courts. Thank you for the question. I'm scanning to see if there are other questions. Just give me a second here.
Paul, there's one from Marcia Graham talking about, asking about the sort of the inclusiveness for members who've recently joined ADRIA.
Right, and this is always a challenge. We obviously provide professional development training, and we welcome all manner of members. There's no restrictions on an ADRIA membership, a full membership. If I sometimes joke that if people can spell ADR, they can be a full member. Because we appreciate the fact that there are people out there who believe in the processes that we offer. They might just be an HR professional who is interested in seeing more collaborative approaches to problem solving in the labor environment. Might be people that work in the family sector, social workers. You know, that notion of having dialogue-based dispute resolution processes as opposed to resorting to litigation and the courts is something we share. So we welcome all these members. Some people manage programs and the like. It does become a challenge, of course. You know, it's like getting a plumber's license. You know, once you become trained as a professional, you have to find your niche, and you have to move out into the professional world and generate business for yourself. But it's certainly something that Tammy and I have talked about on many occasions. And I believe we have an online course that's going to be reintroduced. Tammy, would you like to speak to this?
Sorry, which online course? The high
How to start an ADR practice?
How to start an ADR business. Well, I'm hoping by the end of the summer, yes, there will be an online course on how to start an ADR business. It's just it'll be 4 sessions, 4 half-day sessions, a lot of synchronous and asynchronous combination on how to start your practice. So we are trying to develop as much as possible in terms of those particular courses that get you from your basic training into the next level. And so the case development is the one that will be launched earlier. And so that really is about the pre-mediation and the case development that's going on. So I am, any suggestions that anybody has, or if anybody has a particular course, I'm absolutely open to ideas. We are a small team, so we can only create 1 or 2 courses at a time, launch them, new courses at a time. So the high conflict and the communications online are our first 2 courses, and then we'll move forward from there. I do see another question here from in part 2 to Marsha's question in regards to other institutes. Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of other institutes that offer training programs. So the University of Calgary in Alberta has a partnership with the IBC and offers conflict management training. Mount Royal University course offers a conflict training program, absolutely. So that is one thing that we do tell everybody who calls in, is that you can take training from other institutes. We do offer designations. We are one option for training. The only thing that I would suggest is that always check that the training that you are taking is approved training for a designation, because it would be shame to take the training and then realize that it hasn't been approved for a designation, as it doesn't meet the requirements. There have been a lot of courses like that.
And there's another aspect to this question that was put forward, and that is, could some of our programs be more effectively delivered through a recognized educational institution? And that certainly has some advantages, but one of the dilemmas that we've often faced is that some of our best instructors, some of our most experienced mediators actually do not have master's degrees. And one of the requirements to teach in many educational institutions is that you have to have a master's degree. So this has always provided a bit of a challenge. And of course, the educational institutions also tend to have, courses that are spread out over a whole semester, as opposed to, more intense sessions where you actually get the practice roles. So these are some of the challenges. As Tammy has said, we are not a training institution. We are a membership association designed to provide or intended to provide professional services and advocate for greater use of ADR in this province. We run a very robust educational component, but we are not the only training facility. And of course, you can earn a designation through any of the courses that Mount Royal or the Justice Institute or anywhere in the world offers, provided it meets a certain standard. But what we have found is that we have a certain niche by offering these professional courses in condensed packages with exceptional and experienced instructors, not necessarily those with master's degrees, but vast experience in mediation. This has been really the secret sauce to our success in terms of running our education programs. So I appreciate that. The writer also asked about mentorship programs, and this for me is a bit of an opportunity to make a pitch. Many years ago, I worked with a colleague, a mentor, if you will, and what I really appreciate about this individual is that he announced to me once that I was still in the military myself at the time, but that he was taking in a partner. And I thought, okay, it'll be somebody about his age, 40s, 50s, that type of thing. And when he showed up with his partner, it was a young man in his 20s, not even married at this particular point. Now that individual is, this is 20 years ago. He's now got gray hair, 3 kids. But what I really appreciated about my mentor is that he went and found talent at a young age and worked with him and developed him as a protege, if you will. It's sometimes surprised me that more of our members, and some of our members are approaching retirement, that they have not done this. They've worked up exceptional skills. They've created robust ADR businesses, and there's an opportunity here to mentor someone. So we don't have a formal mentorship program, but I can assure you that if any of our more senior members were to write to Tammy or I or anyone and said, I would like to mentor someone, can you help me find a young upcoming individual? And we have many that we have seen come through our training programs or that we've become aware of. We would be happy to make introductions. Final aspect of this question, of course, is just, you know, how do I get started in ADR business? Unfortunately, we've had to suspend our networking events, but we look forward to resuming those, whether they're in-person luncheons or evening networking events, so that that young up-and-coming trainees can learn or meet more experienced mediators and perhaps create those opportunities to work together and develop mentorship opportunities. We look forward to resuming that. Sorry, that was a rather long answer. Has anybody on the panel spotted another question that they would like to see answered?
I don't see any more questions.
Well, Sharon,
Oh, I see one. Oh, sorry, Dora. I see there's a question about asking about getting on the.
And just to clarify, is that the family justice roster or the civil mediation roster? Which one? I'm not sure what the question is for.
So that question came from Marilyn. Alberta, it just says
Okay.
Alberta Justice Roster.
Okay, so I can answer that question. Whenever the rosters are open, the Alberta Justice and the Civil Mediation Program will let us know, and we will advertise in our newsletter. So it's not that the rosters are continuously open. They open the rosters when they need new members on the roster. Typically for civil mediation, that is every 2 years. That being said, both the Alberta Justice Family Program as well as the Civil Court are in a bit of a COVID-related on hold for everything. So until COVID is past us and mediations can resume, I do not anticipate either roster opening up. The civil mediation roster requires a bit of a mentorship. It's a co-mediation model. You have to shadow. It's the whole process. And now that the program is through telephone mediation and solo mediation, there is not that opportunity. And so, and even for the interviews for both programs, a role play mediation is required to get on the roster. And so even to pass the role play mediation, that's not something they can do right now. So I would say watch our newsletter, because as soon as it does open, we do let you know. And at this particular point, every program is just running a little bit differently than they have in the past. And we just have to be patient as they're readjusting to a new normal.
Okay, there's no more questions on the chat function, but we still have, we've had some questions that came in earlier there, and you might have heard some reference to it. The CEE points for arbitrators, and Tammy, I might ask you to speak to this for a second. It will be coming in. I believe it's going to be introduced soon. And for those that hold dual qualifications, there will be ways to mesh your CEE applications. I alluded earlier that the fee structure is going to change. People might see that as an increase to their designation fees next January, but it's not really. It's really just spreading out the payment over the 3 years and allowing you to register your points on an ongoing basis. Tammy, can you speak to CEE for arbitrators?
Yes, I actually sit on the national committee for the National Designation Committee. So we have worked out points for arbitrators, which mimic to a degree the mediation points as well. So I do know that there is a structure in place on how points can be tabulated for the CEE. I do not know if ADRIC has taken that next step and just finished all the paperwork on that. So if not, it should be fairly quickly, because our work with the designation committee on that part has been complete. So it's a lot of thought went into it, and it's not exceptionally onerous to gather the CE points, but it does require that you are committed to that particular role. So those that are either arbitrators or mediators that kind of just dabble in it might struggle. Those that really make it as part of their work should not struggle to get CEE points the way it's tabulated.
Thank you, Tammy.
Paul and Barbara, can I make one, if we have a moment, just to make one more brief comment about adjudication?
Sure.
Yeah, it's probably implicit in my remarks, but the exciting thing about this initiative is that we're quite confident this is going to create real opportunities for our membership, real adjudication opportunities. Now, you will have to take extra training, but we're working towards, and hopefully we'll be successful in convincing governments at the various level, and in particular Alberta, to allow that training to reflect the training that you have already received as a CARB or a QARB. So the training additional training you would take to do an adjudication would take into account the training you've already received. And we're already in consultation with the entity in the UK that has a very robust training program in existence right there. But they recognize that you people who have received a QARB or CARB have received some very relevant training already. So we're really hoping that for those of you with construction backgrounds, it's going to be a real opportunity for work for you in the future.
Thank you, Barry. And in fact, there was a question earlier from JB about, what's the difference between adjudication and referee? I typed a private answer back to him. They're essentially the same. The difference with prompt payment legislation and adjudication is that it will be mandatory, and it'll be mandatory within a set time frame. Whereas referee services, which are similar, very similar, are really at the request of the parties, unless it's contained in their contract. So it's not legislated, it's just contracted usually or agreed to by the parties. So that's a significant difference. We still have over 40 on the line, but I'm not seeing a lot of questions. So just a reminder to the
I was going to say, my rule for being online with Zoom, you need a break every hour, and we haven't taken one yet. So I don't see any new questions. So I think there's been some great discussion, and I'm going to suggest that unless there's anything else coming in at the last minute, that we look at saying good night. And thank you so much, everybody, for your participation. Paul, anything quick to add?
No, there were some private expressions of gratitude on the chat function, some of which was only sent to the panelists. So, but again, I want to give my thanks to the membership for sticking it out. We started with well over close to 70. We still have 40 online. This is a great membership. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with them. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Keep well.